We've been looking at this teaching series actually we just started last week. It's just a 3-week short kind of mini series all about seeing God, and which I think is a really, really great topic. And Andy looked last week at seeing God in the workplace, and Phil's speaking on seeing God in creation next week, and I'm looking at seeing God in the home today. Just turn me just quickly though, before we get into my topic, just turn me just quickly to 1 John 3. And we're going to look at verse 2. So I want to just set the scene a little bit, just lay a foundation a little bit before we get into specifically about the home. 1 John 3 verse 2, it says, "Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known." Turn to the person next to you and say, "It's okay, because I'm not yet what I will be. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself just as he is pure." Verse 6 goes on to say that no one who lives in him keeps on sinning. No one who continues to sin has either seen him or known him. And then if you flick over to 3 John 11, just for another reference as well, it says, "Dear friends, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God, and anyone who does what is evil has not seen God." I want to tell you this morning that as Christians we get to see God. In fact, how we see God is an indication of our relationship with him. The very fact that we know him means that when we look at different situations, how you see God, where you see God, directly affects the person that you're becoming. And when we lose sight of God in the situations that we face, that's when things kind of go a bit off topic. And it's so easy sometimes, and I'm guilty of this as well, to not always see God working in things. But it does say in Hebrews 13 verse 5 that, this is God speaking to us, "Never will I leave you, and never will I forsake you." It also says in Joshua 1 verse 9 to be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Why? For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And I wanted to say to you this morning, just before we set off on what I'm going to talk to you about, that God is in everything and he is everywhere you go. And this whole series is just about recognizing that and seeing how God's working in your life. Genesis 28 verse 16 says that when Jacob woke from his sleep, he thought, "Surely God is in this place, and I was not aware of it." And it's easy sometimes to forget that God is with you wherever you go. So I love this particular part of this series though, seeing God in the home. I do think I've probably got the best one out of all of them. As we know from previous messages, that Andy gets all the worst ones. Likes to remind us. But I've definitely got the best one, seeing God in your home. Because we all know that saying that charity starts in the home, right? You've all heard that before. Yeah, charity starts in the home. Well, actually, I believe that everything starts in the home. I think if you want to see more joy in your life, start in your home. If you want to see more peace in your life, start in your home. If you want to see more generosity in your life, start being generous at home. It all starts at home. I mean, it's interesting though, isn't it? It's difficult sometimes when you're kind of out and about doing your shopping and you're there with your kids. And I'm going to talk a lot probably from a perspective maybe as a dad or a husband, because that's from my context, but actually I'm just talking generally about your home. So I'm talking to you if you're a mum, if you're a dad, if you're a son, a daughter, if you're a husband, if you're a wife. I'm talking to you today, but it may be that a lot of the context is taken out from the fact that I'm a husband and I'm a father. And so I recognise it's quite difficult sometimes when you're walking around maybe at Asda or something with your child, and this happens. Have you got that first picture that I put on the screen? We've all been there. In fact, the Bible says 1 Timothy 3 verse 4, says he must manage, this is talking about elders and leaders, he must manage his family well and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. Or another translation says, or with full dignity. How many parents know that when your child is doing that, it's really, really hard to keep your dignity? I don't know whether you're one of those parents who kind of smile on the outside, but then under your breath are going, just wait till I get you home. I've got a couple of other pictures to show as well. How many times has that happened to one of you? So embarrassing, going back, listen, I'm really sorry, but my daughter took this from your shop. She's not a criminal. She just didn't know what she was doing. I've got one last one as well. That's Kezia. Gosh, she's 9 now. I had to dig that one out. But yeah, if you're a parent of young children, you know exactly how stressful the home can be in particular. And when you see like other parents walk around, you see it happen to them. Even though you know how you felt when you went through it, you look at them and you go, oh, they obviously can't control their kids. Hashtag family goals. But yeah, I was thinking about the home. There's so many things I could talk to you about, simple things that you will already know, and maybe actually just need a bit of a push to doing it, like things like praying together as a family and reading Bible stories to your kids. All those type of things are really, really simple ways to see God more in your home. But I felt like, in fact, there's a ton of Bible verses about home and about kids and about being husbands and wives. Some examples are Proverbs 22 verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Psalm 127 verse 1, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Proverbs 3:33, the Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteous. Did you know your home's blessed? It doesn't always feel that way, but do you know it's blessed? You've got to say it, you've got to believe it, you've got to claim it. It's blessed. This Psalm 84 verse 3 is a favorite verse of Leah's, because she was, when you read the Bible sometimes and just Bible verses stand out for you in that season of time, and we were looking for a house because Reuben was on the way, and so she was really nervous and wanted a house near the church as well, and she read this in her daily readings and just claimed it as her own. Psalm 84 verse 3 says, even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself where she may have her young, but a place near your altar, Lord Almighty, my King and my God. Leah held on to that for a long time. So the way you see God in your home is to build in a godly way, right? So there's many things you can do to do that, as I mentioned, praying together, reading Bible stories to your kids and all that type of stuff. But I want to pick out a particular Bible verse which I came across, which I think is really illustrates greatly the idea of God's idea of a godly home. And it's in Isaiah 32 verse 18. So like I said, I'm not covering everything today. I'm just going to cover what I think is a real example here of what God wants to do in our families. And it comes from in a time, actually, where if you look at the whole context of the verse, that it's actually referring to probably quite a negative time in the Israelites' history. So this is more like if you do that, then you'll see this type of verse. And this is then you'll see this part of the verse. So Isaiah 32:18 says, my people will live in peaceful dwelling places, in secure homes, and in undisturbed places of rest. I think if we are all honest, that's what we hope for our home. That we have peace, that we have security, and that we have rest. So I came here today to tell someone that your home can be a place where all those take place. And so I'll start my first point is referring to the peaceful dwelling places. And my first point is this, is sometimes you have to lose to gain. Lose to gain. So recently I've been, I say recently, I don't know if you're like me, but I will kind of go around in cycles where I'll get to a point where I'm like, I've got to get fit, I've got to get fit, I've got to get fit. And you go on a bit of a health thing, and then after a few weeks, it kind of dies off. And then you're like back to eating, pizza and chocolate all the time. Well, I thought I've got a bit of a plan, because our Reuben wanted to he said, get fit. I mean, he's like 20 times fitter than I am. He's like, if you see him like with his shirt off, like he's just like, you just see muscle and everything. It's just like skin, not skin and bones. There's muscle there, and I'm so jealous of his kind of like six-packy area. I don't tell him that. I've got like a 12-pack. I'm all right. He doesn't need to know. But yeah, so I had this idea that, so in fact, well, it came from Reuben, actually. He said, I want to go for a run every day. So I said, okay, yeah, sure, we'll go for a run every day. So I've been starting to go running with him every morning, and it's a challenge. But that's how it works. I mean, if you want to lose weight, if you want to get fit and gain that fitness, you have to sacrifice in some way to get it right. And so I want to talk about some things that we need to lose in our families if we're going to gain peace in our houses. I think it's really important to explain that peace is not the absence of external conflict, but it's the absence of internal conflict. So when I start talking about peace, I'm going to be looking from the context of how we, if you like, how we bring balance to ourselves so that we can be a balancing force in our homes. James 4 verse 1 says, "What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from the desires that battle within you?" So you can be at war, but actually still have peace inside, right? You can be at battle with somebody and still have peace inside. So if we want to create a peaceful dwelling, then we have to look at the conflicts within. So the first thing that I think you have to lose, you've got to lose the controls. You see where I'm going with this, right? I mean, I don't know whether you're the same as me, but we lose the controls in our living room probably once a week. It's that bad. Now, it comes from the fact that each of my kids want to guarantee that the show they're watching stays on while they nip out the room. So what they do is, or sometimes even they'll just hide them anyway under a cushion or something. But the problem is they forget where they put it. And they won't admit that they've lost it. You know, who had the controls last? Not me. Really? All four of you didn't have it, and yet it's missing? Are you suggesting that some elves came in and took the controls away? In fact, we've found them in odd places, like we've even found them in the fridge and in cupboards, because they've gone to get something to eat secretly, because they like to steal food, my kids. And they're going like, while they're sneaking, but they've taken the controls with them so that no one in the living room changes the channel while they're out, because they're watching their show. They put the controls down in the fridge or in the cupboard, get the food, and then just go back to the chair and forget they ever did it. We found it in the toilet, in the bathroom. We found it in the bedroom, because they just nipped upstairs, gone to the toilet, gone to the bedroom, and just left the controls there and come downstairs and forgot all about it. And it's so frustrating. But I want to talk to you about losing the control today, because I mean, I had to laugh this week. We received a letter from the school my kids go to, and during the holidays they were building a new playground, and we walked past it together on the way to the shops, going for a little walk, and we saw it, and they were so excited about this new playground. They're like, "It's brilliant! Can't wait! Oh, amazing!" We got to school on the first day, and they weren't allowed to play in the playground. I was like, okay. Wonder where this is going. Like, they've made the playground, but no one can play in it. What's going on? And we received this letter come home with the kids, explain that, but before the children can play on the playground, they have to go through the playground training course. True story. Because it's really important that they understand what's the correct way to go up a slide and the correct way to go down a slide. And we don't want them to run in the playground. That's the other thing. It's on the letter, actually. So my kids had to, they went through an afternoon of training on the playground. Children had to be taught how to play on a playground. And so they did all this training, and this letter came, and on the letter it detailed things like, not going up the slide the wrong way, how to use the monkey bars correctly, and this whole long list. And at the end it said, and of course, have fun. And thanks, I added that one at the end. Like, how can they have fun? You've taken all the fun out of it, right? But it got me thinking, sometimes we can go to the extreme of stuff like this, trying to bring control and order into our lives. And actually what it does is often it brings, it casts out peace in the home. I just got to wondering this week, what would the world look like if we stopped trying to correct and change everything and improve everything and just started celebrating things more? I wanted to tell you today that your home is exactly what it should be. Stop trying to control it so much For me, having young children in my house, my focus has always been about keeping the place tidy. The number of times I've prayed to God for more quiet in my house. And I got to thinking this week that the reason why I'm asking for those things, not because those are the things that the house needs, but because of the season that I'm in right now. When you have young children, that's just life. Like, your house is going to be noisy and your house is going to be messy. I know people who maybe can't have children, or people who have children have grown up and left home, and they wish there was more noise and more mess in the house. They're not asking for quiet or tidiness. They've got that already. So it's just the season that you're in. And so I had to talk to myself a little bit recently about all this, because what I found was constantly I was going around and trying to correct things and trying to teach things in my kids all the time and trying to teach things in Leah. So, the number of times I've told Leah that her minging wet tea bags in the sink just gross me out. Does anyone else hate wet tea bags, wet cold tea bags? And Leah just leaves them in a cup, and then you pour it out to put it in the dishwasher, and then it goes. You hear this slap, and you're like, and you put your hand in and scoop it out. Sometimes she just does it herself. I heard that, but I got to thinking that some things are just the season. My home is not broken. It's as it should be, and I've got to enjoy that and celebrate that while I've got the opportunity. It says in Psalm 119 verse 73 that your hands made me and formed me. In Romans 9 verse 21 it describes God as the potter. I think it's really interesting that God describes himself and describes how he makes us as forming us. We understand that God spoke and creation came into being, right? We get that. We know. But he still describes it as forming us. He says that he formed us in our mother's wombs, right? So God took time. Now for him, what takes him time is probably going to be a lot quicker than what takes us time. But the idea, the thought behind what he's saying, behind that word, that particular word that he's using, is that he took time to think about who you are, to form you, okay? And I love that imagery that he's given us. And I came here to tell someone here today that your home is not broken, it's just not fully formed yet. And that's the perspective we have to have. And if we can do that, and if we can get that put into our kids and into our partners in our homes, then we'll bring a lot more peace into that environment. Second thing to gain, you have to lose your selfishness. It's a hard one to swallow. I don't know if you're one of those parents, if you're a parent here who use guilt as a way to try and correct their children. I don't know if you've ever done that before. I had to retrain myself recently because that's what I was doing. So when I was coming in and seeing a mess, I'm going to refer to a mess a lot probably because that's what really kind of winds me up. If I come and see a mess, the words I would use are things like this. Do you think I want to go around cleaning up your mess all the time? Made it about me. Do you think I've not worked hard enough today to come home and to work by clearing up your mess? And I made it all about me, about how it affects me. But the problem with that is I'm not teaching them the principle that it's good to clear up your mess after yourself. I'm teaching them it's an inconvenience to me. And that's the reason why you got to clean up. And that's not what I want to teach them. I want to teach them that if you are an organized, sensible person, when you make a mess, and conscientious, if you make a mess, you clear it up. It's a principle. But I'm making it about me. And that's bringing frustration and tension because I feel like I'm saying to them all the time, think about me. Think about me. Psalm 68 verse 3 says that God sets lonely people in families. I believe he sets us all in families actually. I believe that's the perspective that we've got to have. As a father, I've always been not always, but I've caught myself at times feeling almost like the family revolves around me. I impregnated my wife, and I've got these kids, and these kids are here to show respect and honor to me, and to bring some joy into my life. And if they're not bringing respect and joy into my life, then they're not fulfilling their role. Right? Like as if the world revolves around me. Like as if the old kind of way of thinking was that there was the earth and the sun and stars all revolved around the earth. And then we realized one day, actually, no, we weren't the center of the universe. When God arranged your family, I believe this is the perspective we should have. That he saw some people and he thought, they need a Luke. They need an Andy. They need a John. They need a Charles. That we're here actually not for our own benefit, but for theirs. And if we can lose our selfishness, we'll bring more peace into the family. What would your family look like if that was your perspective? What would your church look like, your church family, if that was your perspective too? The last thing to lose is your unforgiveness. You know, it's interesting in life actually that I kind of naively thought that maybe there's things that you can get by without tension, but actually there's pretty much always tension, if we're honest, in most things. I'll give an example. Working in production is fantastic, but you guys probably think that it's really easy. Turn things on, the band come, plug in, start playing, a bit of conversation and stuff. But actually there's a tension there because if Andy's over here saying, turn up my fallback all the time, crank it right up, all you guys can hear is what's coming out of there and going back out there, or whoever's on there, or whoever's on this one. I can't hear myself turning the volume right up. So at the back, the guys thinking, got to protect the sound overall. The guys on stage are thinking, got to hear myself to play properly. So everyone's got the right motives, but there's tension there. And actually, that's life, actually. That's how life operates and works. There is always tension in everything that we do. There's always times where we're going to be frustrated and angry. But if you want peace in your family, you've got to lose your unforgiveness. Ephesians 4 verse 26-27 says that in your anger do not sin, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. You know, I had an interesting, I heard someone speak on that once, and it was really interesting because he brought something out of it I'd never realized before, in that you haven't got to have a conversation, you haven't got to deal with an issue to forgive or to lose your anger. See, that Bible verse isn't telling you that you have to have an argument with your wife until ungodly hours of the night because you can't go to sleep until you sort it. What it's saying is that you have to deal with your anger and you have to deal with your forgiveness. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to deal with the issue. You can deal with the issue tomorrow when you've had a good night's sleep. You can't sleep without getting rid of your anger and your forgiveness, your unforgiveness. And so when people come to me sometimes like, got to talk to you now. Like, do you? Because I'm really urgent, I'm really busy. Can I talk to you tomorrow? No, got to talk to you now. Got to talk to you now. And then they talk to you and you realize actually that the urgency is that they're angry. And so you apologize and whatever you need to do in that situation to resolve it. But actually, it wasn't urgent. It was just urgent to them, right? We've all been there. We've all been that person, right? We've got to lose our forgiveness. So to bring peace into our families, we've got to lose control. We need to control. We've got to lose our selfishness and we've got to lose our unforgiveness. The second point I want to speak to you today is about giving a sure sign. This is referring to the having a secure home part of that first verse. So I want to speak to you about creating security in your home. I'm not going to list some companies that give a great deal on alarm systems or locks for your doors. I'm not going to suggest that, you make sure that every night you lock your windows and your doors. Right, Mum? Yeah? Mum is manic about locking windows and doors. You go into a house, I've still got a key, refuse to give it back, just walk in, and guarantee, have you locked the door behind you? But no, I want to talk to you about something else. Turn with me to Joshua 6. Very interesting take. It's a story of the Israelites going into the promised land, and they were facing Jericho at this point. We'll start in chapter 6. So verse 1, I won't read the whole thing to you, but I'll just read certain verses. So verse 1 says, Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went in and no one went out. So how many of us know here that while we're trying to protect something, sometimes we can lock things up? like emotionally, we can lock up. Make sure that nothing's going in, nothing's going out. Verse 17 says, so this is after God's told them they have to walk around the Jericho, once a day, and then on the last day 7 times, and then blow the trumpets and all that stuff. So verse 17 says, it says, the city and all that is in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies well. Okay, so this is Rahab who a few chapters before had hidden the 2 spies that came into the land to try and make sure that, because she said to him, look, I know that your God is powerful, and I want to make sure that I can protect my house. In verse 20 it says that when the trumpet sounded, the people shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the people gave a loud shout, the walls collapsed, and every man charged straight in, they took the city. How many of you know here today that no matter how big or strong the walls are, God can get through? We're talking about protecting ourselves. So we know that the Israelites took Jericho, but they spared Rahab. And this is what Rahab says in chapter 2 and verse 12. When she's hiding the spies, she says to them, give me a sure sign. So for her protection to be in place, she said, give me a sure sign. And when it comes to securing your home, I want to ask you today, are you giving a sure sign? Let me explain. On my phone, if I turn the volume up, where headphones are in, because I want to listen to something, and it's never as loud as I want it to be, and I think they always err on the side of caution, but I get a little notification, don't know if you guys get that too, that says, when you get to a certain volume, listening to music at this temperature, at this volume, can be really hot now, this volume, can, for long periods of time, can damage your hearing. And you can't get around it, you have to literally click, okay, I agree to that, and then turn it up. And there's no way around it, so you can be turning it up in your pocket like this, and you're thinking, why is it turned up? Oh, of course, yeah, take it out, you've got to click it, you've got to turn it up. I don't recommend you listen to music at loud volumes, by the way, that's not me saying that, just for short periods of time maybe. So there's no way around it. It's a sign that I can't get away from. And in our families, in our homes, we each have responsibility to give a sure sign to other people in our families that they are safe, that they are secure. And this is how we do it. I want to start by saying something that I want you to try and remember, that the destroyer of security is the assumption of love. Let me explain. It's very easy for you as a mum, a dad, a son, a daughter, and I always remember my dad saying to me over and over again, make sure you tell your mum you love her. It's so easy to assume that people know you love them. But we have to give a sure sign. We do that by being there. What I mean by that is that it's easy for us to be there but not be there. There's a plight in this generation, in this world of particularly in men who are there but they're not there. I think God's like kind of going, ooh, every time I go like that. Is there a monitor on that shouldn't be? I keep going over here to talk to these guys and I'm like, oh, no, go over here again. See you later. You have to be there. There's a plight, I think, in particularly in this generation, like of men who are there but they're not there. You know, they're there but they're playing on the PS4, or they're there but really they want to be in the pub with their friends, or wherever it may be. They're there but they're not there. God experienced the same thing in Isaiah 29 verse 13. He says, the Lord says, these people come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. We have to give a sure sign. We have to be there, 100% be there in the moment. And we have to speak and we have to act love. Just quickly turn over to John 13 verse 1. This is the bit of the Bible just before, the gospel just before Jesus is taken. It's just for the Last Supper. And he's with his disciples, and it says in verse 1, that it was just full of Passover feast, and Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to his Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. It goes on then for him to wash his disciples' feet. He could have been talking about that. He could have been talking about showing them a full extent by dying on a cross. Either way, Jesus showed his love. He didn't just say it, he showed it. And he showed us a model for us to take on board as individuals, that if we are in an environment, if we're in a collection of people, a family or otherwise, we have to make sure that we speak and we show love. If you want to bring security into your home, I'm talking about emotional security. If you want insecurity in your home, if you want uncertainty in your home, if you want fear of abandonment in your home, if you want feelings of worthlessness in your home, if you want feelings of loneliness in your home, you don't even have to stop loving. You just have to assume they know. John 4 verse 18 says that perfect love drives out all fear. I don't have perfect love, but I know I have enough love to drive out some fear, to drive out some insecurity. We have to show our love. So I'm going to protect my family by doing so. And one day Leah turned to me and she said, "You never kiss me goodnight." I thought, pretty sure that I do. But it was something that was bothering her at the time. Just, I don't know where or why, where it came from or why that particular thing bothered her, but I was like, okay. It's like, yeah, you're right. So the Bible also talks about going the extra mile, but Leah didn't want to be obedient to God. She's rebellious sometimes. She's not fully formed yet. So we stopped at kissing, but I now give her a kiss every single night. Why? Because that helps her to feel loved, which helps her to feel secure, to feel to cast out all feelings of insecurity, because she feels safe and loved in the home. The last thing I want to talk to you about, the last part of that verse, is talks about undisturbed place of rest. I don't know about you, but rest is a difficult concept, because for me, rest, I always attach guilt to rest. At the moment I rest, literally from the moment I stop, I start feeling guilty. But the Bible talks about rest being important. You know, we had the Easter camp a few weeks back, and thank you to all those of you who contributed financially, or gave food, or helped drive, or came with us, because it was a really fantastic time. However, there was one part of the trip that was not very good. And that was, and Jane knows what I'm going to say, don't you, Jane? Because on the last day we went to Scarborough, and they have a high ropes course there. And so this high ropes course is like a rectangle shape, and it's like on 4 legs, and then you've got like a platform where you've got loads of bridges that are quite difficult to climb over. And then you have another level, you go up some more steps to another level, and you have some more difficult bridges and stuff to climb across. Okay, but you obviously clicked on the whole time, you can't fall off. But it's still like nerve-wracking, whatever. And I decided to take Ruben and Jared on this high ropes course. And like I said, it's on stilts, and in the middle of it all, right at the bottom, so literally underneath where all the bridges are, there are picnic benches and there's a path. So people can walk through the path to get to where they want to go, and they can come and sit down and have a nice lunch and a picnic, and enjoy a bit of a rest, a bit of a break. They're in Scarborough having a nice day. And so up we go, and we do the first platform. Then I said to Jared, are you up for the next level? He's like, yeah, so it's the next level. And we start walking around that and climbing over the different things. And we get to pretty much the furthest point away from the exit. And Jared says, "I need a wee." So I said, "Jared, no, you don't. you need to take that thought captive right now. Make it obedient to the word of God." He said, no, I need a wee. I said, well, you're going to have to hold it because it's going to take us a while to get back to the exit. One bridge later, and he looks at me, and he starts to cry, and he just says, I'm weeing. And I look down, and there's this big, first of all, there's a big patch. Then it starts to spray out of his shorts. Listen, sometimes I exaggerate a little bit. This is not one of those stories. So it's spraying out of his shorts. And the people below on the benches who are eating their sandwiches look up and go, is it starting to rain? And then he stops, and I think we're past the worst of it, and he's on a platform, and there's a massive puddle. And so I start to bring it, I said, it took me 20 minutes to get him off, right? Start trying to get him across the bridge. And as I'm doing it, I'm thinking, well, at least we're past the worst of it. But no, because it was a windy day, and we were right at the top. And every gust of wind sent more wee down, and they're all going, keeps trying. It's spitting. I was so embarrassed. And the guy who was in charge, he went up, and there was a guy down who was taking the money, and he went up and he was looking around, and he knew something had happened, and he went over to that platform, and he looked down at his friend, and he went, yeah. Those poor people who were just there to sit down, have an undisturbed rest, have a little picnic, got weed on. I don't even know if they realised. But our home should be a place of undisturbed rest. So I've called this Test Your Rest, because I think sometimes we struggle with the idea of rest. We think that rest is something that actually is maybe a bit of a waste of time. Like, I can keep going. It's okay. I can keep doing it. And we can quote Bible verses to us. Like Psalm 4 verse 8 said, I will lie down and sleep in peace. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. So that's a positive thing. That that God helps us to lie down and rest in safety. There's also Mark 6 verse 31 says that then because so many people were coming and going, that they did not have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourself to a quiet place and get some rest. There's also tons of Bible verses that talks about being a sluggard, about being lazy. We can always feel guilty, but I wanted to tell you first of all that your rest is blessed. Genesis 2 verse 3 says that then the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy because on it he rested. Your rest isn't a waste of time. It isn't something you do purely as obedience to God because he told you to do it and take a Sabbath day. You do it because it's blessed. If you want blessing on your home, take some time and rest. Your rest keeps you at your best. We went to Excel a couple of years back. We heard a guy speak called Dr. Robbie Sonderegger. That's not how you pronounce it, but it's how it's written. Don't judge me. I can't remember his name. But he spoke, and he's a psychiatrist, and he'd done some studies, and he'd researched an awful lot about the idea of rest. And he explained that how the Sabbath, if you like, is roughly 15%, if you like, of the week. And he was saying that it's been proven, scientists have proven it, scientifically proven it, that if we work more than 85% of what we're capable of, time-wise, energy-wise, that we will never be 100% efficient. In other words, if you don't take that day off, that 15% off, then you literally will not be as efficient at doing what you want to do than what you would be if you had taken that time to rest. You can literally do more in 85% than you can do in 100%. Your rest keeps you at your best. And the last thing in this point is that your rest is when God speaks to you. Just turn me quickly to, you'll know the story, but in 1 Kings 19 and verse 11 to 13 is when Elijah is really struggling and needs to hear from God. Kind of feeling quite lonely, quite depressed, quite defeated actually, which is kind of odd because of what he achieved. In verse 11 it says, the Lord said, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. And a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. After the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. Then a voice said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? One thing that I've realized recently in the last year, probably, it was a year and a half, is I started to take some time for myself. And I started to try and protect that time. And so I would go for a walk, because that's just my way of getting rid of all the disturbances in my life. And just like Elijah, there were lots of stuff going off around him. There were earthquakes and big gusts of winds and fiery things all going off around him. And if you like, you can say that about life. There's all sorts of stuff vying for your attention, all sorts of stuff going off in your life that tries to distract your mind. Sometimes even you try and rest, but you feel like you can't because your mind won't shut off. And so I started to take some time for myself where I would just go for a walk. And I've got to, if I'm completely honest with you, I was utterly surprised about how much God began to speak to me personally in those moments. About my life, about my ministry, about my leadership, about my family. There's rarely a time where I go out and I don't hear from God. I don't mean that I'm super spiritual. I just mean that I did the most simplest thing in the world. I got rid of everything else and just made it about me and him. Your rest is when God will speak to you the most, because it's when he gets rid of all the rest of the noise and you can just hear him. So I want to encourage you to rest this morning. Seeing God in the home. It's all about a peaceful dwelling place. It's all about creating a secure environment. And it's all about taking some time to have some undisturbed rest. I hope that's encouraged you this morning. Why don't you stand to your feet as we finish. I just want to finish by praying for you. I want to say to you as well that here as a church we believe in each and every one of you, and we want you to be at your best. And that means that your homes are at the best. Don't come to me and say, I'm so busy serving this, serving that I couldn't spend time with my kids this week. Don't come and tell me that. I don't want to hear it. I'll tell you that was wrong. Spend time with your kids. Spend time with your husband. Spend time with your wives. Because if you can make sure and protect your home, you will be the better leader, worker, person for it. I believe it. It's out of building that foundation at home that you find real strength in life. Amen.